afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to our guests. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Believe in Me. Good afternoon to all of our children in our after-school Reading for Reasoning program. Today marks our first and hopefully will become an annual panel on incarceration. The children in the after-school program have been working all year, working on their reading skills, improving their grades, social behaviors. And today we would like to address something that's very near and dear to all of us, is the issue of incarceration. It is a prevalent issue in the city of New Haven and all over the United States, and each one of us in this room has been touched by it. The children have come together to come up with different questions to address each of you professionally with your experience with incarceration, and they're just questions that they would really like answered to give them a better idea and understanding. I'd like to introduce our panel. We have Ms. Sauda Baraka, Mr. Trevor Johnson, Mr. Darnell Walker, Mr. John Santa, Ms. Janita Santos, and Mr. William Outlaw. So if our panel members would, just to give the children a little bit more background information about what your profession or retired profession is and how you directly would be an asset to our panel. If you could each just give a 1 to 2 minute bio and explanation about what you do or have done. Sauda, would you start first?
Hi, I know most of you here. My name is Sauda Baraka. I'm retired from CSSD, which is Court Support Services Division. I work for adult probation, and I retired as the chief probation officer. I ran the Bridgeport office. I was a probation officer for 22 years, and I worked with families and adults and some youth. At the time we had 16 and 17-year-olds on our caseload. And the goal is to help people to do better. So our goal is always to make a difference, to help everyone do better. They can be successful and accomplish and be able to take over for us when we are too old to work and be involved in the community. Thank you.
My name is Trevor Johnson, and I'm a regional manager with the state of Connecticut Adult Probation, and for many years I had the pleasure of being Sauda Baraka's supervisor, and I probably learned a heck of a lot more from her than she learned from me. And that's part of what life is about, taking advantage of learning opportunities. I also am a college professor at CCSU, Central Connecticut State University. The reason this topic is important to me is when I was around your age, and even when I was younger, starting at maybe age 2, my father started going in and out of prison. And so most of my life I had to deal with what that was about, being separated from him and understanding what was going on in his life, and how if I didn't adjust my life, I probably would follow in the same footsteps. So I'd like to just echo the same thing, that it's important that you guys take advantage and make good choices, because there's a lot of opportunities ahead for you.
My name is Darnell Walker. I'm a bail bondsman and bail enforcement agent for the state of Connecticut. I've been so for the last 4 years. For that, I also work here at Believe in Me. I had the privilege of actually working with a lot of incarcerated people coming home and dealing with probation, different parts of the system. In the bail enforcement world, we're like the people that will give you trust. So we basically give you a chance to come home to get it right while you're going through your court process, and show the judge that maybe you don't have to be incarcerated. So usually a company like myself will give the state money to let you come home, and hopefully you pick the right decisions and go to a program or whatever you need to get it right. They need to get it right, and I guess I'm the one that's supposed to give you that trust.
Hi, my name is John Santa, and I'm a member of the Order of Malta. The Order of Malta is a very old order, non-hereditary old order in the Roman Catholic Church of men and women. We're not ordained, we're just men and women. And we do work on behalf of the sick and the poor. There's 13,000 of us around the world, about 3,000 here in America, and about 200 here in Connecticut. We do all kinds of different things. About 15 years ago, a good friend of mine went to prison, and I went and visited him. And prior to that, quite honestly, I didn't even think about prison. I didn't know anything about prison. But I went to visit him for 4 years, did a 4-year hitch. Having done that, when he came out, we formed Malta Prison Volunteers in Connecticut in order to train people to be prison ministers, to bring books and Bibles into prison, and to help people get jobs when they came out. 2 years ago, after a lot of reflection, a lot of work on this thing, we found out, and it's just an enlightenment we came to, that was the most important thing we could do is educate and inform walking around people. You're here because you know part of the prison life. You have a relative, or a friend, a parent, sister, brother that's in the system. You know what it's like. A lot of people drive down the street here, they don't know what it's like. They don't understand. So our job is to go out there and inform them, educate and inform them. There's 3 specific groups we're after. Business community, academic community like Yale and such, and faith communities. And we want to inform them about the opportunities for reform, for criminal justice legislation reform, because that's where it's at. That's where we'll make differences. That's where we'll change things. That's where we'll make it better. That's what will help people that are in prison get better corrected. So that's what we do. And I'm very honored to be here with all of you today. I thank you very much for that.
Good afternoon. My name is Janita Santos. I was employed by the Department of Corrections 21 years. I retired in 2011. In my career, being a correctional officer, I was promoted to correctional treatment officer, then a counselor, and ending as a correctional lieutenant. I found working all 4 of those positions that I had to wear many hats working inside each and every facility that I worked in. What I found most interesting in performing my duties or conducting my duties as a correctional professional, there were people just like me, came from the same neighborhood that I came from. I grew up here in the city of New Haven, right around the corner, 224 Munson Street. And the people that I seen coming inside the facilities or the institutions, they were people that I may have moved up with, that I may have hung out with as a young woman, or maybe had even dated during my high school years. And I realized that there was something definitely wrong here, okay? That my people are coming in here for things that they do not really understand the consequences for. And I wanted to do something to change that in any way, form, or fashion that I could. So I decided, and I took it upon myself, because when you work for DOC, they systematically brainwash you to believe that people that look like you are the worst of the worst, okay? But I was raised in this community by, how can I say, very strong black women, okay, that told me, or have taught me, or have poured into me to like me and do not allow anyone to change who I was, okay? So therefore, as my years of being in the Department of Corrections, I will watch, meaning, okay, let me use their terminology. I would observe, I would listen, and I would take heed to whatever was going on. What DOC did not realize about me is that I have what you call a photographic memory. So I was able to store things. You're familiar with a computer and a database? Well, that's what our brains are, okay? I was able to store things and was able to recount things, and just as if it happened yesterday, it might have happened 6 months. So I became what they call Sister Soldier while I was in the Department of Corrections. And what I did was, I learned the administrative directives and policy procedures like the back of my hand. So when my coworkers, my peers, or even my supervisor would do something that was wrong or abuse their authority, I would challenge them when it came down to the population. So that's what I did in DOC. That's what I still do. I advocate for people, and I tell them you are somebody and your voice can be heard in the right medium, the right format. You can be listened to.
Good afternoon. My name is William Marlowe. I'm an ex-offender. At the young age of 15, 14, I stopped listening to my mother. That led me to go to jail at the age of 19, was sentenced to 85 years in prison. By the grace of God, only by God's will that I'm here. At 1992, listen up, 1992, I appealed the case. The court said, okay, you didn't do all that, but you did do some of the stuff, and they gave me 30 years. Off the 30 years, I did 20 years. I came home in 2008 after doing 20 years straight in prison. I'm here to tell you today, the first thing you must do, I don't know if it's your grandmother, your mother, whoever your guardian is, I guarantee you this. It's a saying in the Bible, honor thy mother and thy father. You must do that. If you don't do that, you don't listen to those people that are guarding you or watching you, taking care of you, putting clothes on your back, I guarantee you, you're gonna have a lot of bad days. I'm currently right now, after doing 20 years, I work with youth. I'm an out street outreach worker. That means I'm in the street of Newhallville. I'm signed to Newhallville. So I go to Newhallville and I gauge young men that supposedly want to get in gangs or want to get in trouble. So I gauge them. I try to get them back in school. I try to help them find jobs. You know, I gauge them every day. I also have another job. My day job is, look how good God is. My day job is, I work for Eastern Seal Goodwill, reentry. I work with ex-offenders coming out, preparing them for society, trying to help them get back on track. Only by the grace of God, like I said in the beginning, that I'm here. Thank you.
This is for the ex-offender. How did your family deal with your incarceration?
I was to see my mother the other day and working on a documentary, and they interviewed my mother. And my mother told them that when all this stuff was in the paper about what I was doing and I got arrested, that she didn't want to work no more. She didn't want to go to work. She worked at Winchester for like 39 years, and this was on her like her 20-something years. She didn't want to go to work. So she didn't call in. She almost got fired because she didn't want to go to work because she was ashamed. Because she knew that she didn't raise me like that. So she was embarrassed that we had all this stuff in the paper about me doing this and doing that, and I wasn't raised like that. But I told her, Mom, I broke God's covenant. I didn't honor you. That's why I said in the beginning, honor thy mother and thy father. And she was devastated. My family was devastated. My kids was devastated. You know, leaving my kids out here, and I left, I had 5 kids. It was devastating. You know, they still struggle with that today. So, I mean, it was devastation to my family by me doing what I did and getting incarcerated. Yes, it was very hard on my family.
This is for the bail bondsman. Have you ever been scared or intimidated into posting someone's bond?
Fortunately, I grew up in New Haven, and I grew up in the inner city, so a lot of people that I post bond for is people that I know, unfortunately, or I grew up with, or somebody, family member that, so it's more of, I feel I have to give them that chance because I was given that chance.
Alright, this is for the parole officer. Probation officer. What are your job duties?
It's a case management position, so you're actually getting clients and you're working with them to address whatever social, educational, employment needs, any socio-emotional, meaning if does the person have any psychological or social needs. Also, if they have substance abuse, addressing all those needs, and then helping them to make the right decision to correct those issues and to become productive citizens in our community. And it takes a lot of work because sometimes when people, everybody has things that they like to do. You have a habit, right? You do it over and over again. There are things that you just like to do. Well, that's the same thing when people get caught up in the criminal justice system. A lot of times it becomes a habit for them, something that they're used to doing. It's their friends are there. They have maybe some family that are also participating in it. So everybody's a part. Remember when you guys read Children of Ham, and how how he was involved with a group of guys and they were always doing things together? Well, that's what happens with people. They get used to doing certain things. And what probation officers' roles are is to help them to identify that and to be able to change it, to be able to see, showing them in small increments how you make those changes. Like if you need a job but you've never worked. If you're an adult and you've never worked, it's hard to get a job. So what do you need to do to get that job? You guys are young, right? Some of you are graduating and going to high school. Some of you are still in middle school, going to the next grade. You know that you want to graduate from high school. Everybody want to graduate from high school? Raise your hand. You want to graduate from high school. All right. How many people want to graduate from college? All right. So there's certain things you have to do, right? You got to first graduate, be promoted to the next grade, have good grades, know the material you're learning. Then you have to go to high school, learn all that material, graduate from high school, do well, go to college. So everything is in steps. So what we teach people is how to take those small steps to accomplish the bigger goal.
Can we also extend that question to Mr. Johnson?
Yeah. Everything that I would have said is really important. I think from where I said, I hope that what I do is I hope that I put this young lady right here out of work. My job is to empty the correctional system. If I'm good at my job, then we don't need to lock as many people up. And I know that that's not going to happen because there's some people who need to be locked up.
That's right.
But far too many people who look like you are on that path. So if I'm good at what I do, there's fewer people like that to keep people locked behind bars, you know? So the role of a probation officer is many, but the idea, it's a Latin term, probatio, it means a period of waiting. It means a period to prove yourself. And when a judge gives you probation, he's giving you a deal because he could send you away for 85 years. So probation usually is, I'm going to give you a chance to stay in the community. It's like inside suspension at school. We're not going to throw you out, but we're going to separate you. We're going to keep track of you for a while. And then if you mess up, then we're going to throw you out. If you mess up on probation, the next step is prison. So I admire the people who work in the community to try to keep people out of the prison. And if we're successful, we're going to reduce the prison population. Because the pipeline in Connecticut comes from Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport. Give me another city. What do you think? Waterbury. Okay. New Britain, where there are brown people. Okay. And Connecticut's population is not brown. You know, 10% of Connecticut's population is brown. But about 60 or 70% of the prison population is brown. So it's important for us because we suffer more. And so the work that I chose to do was chosen for me. You know, I feel like I'm doing what was chosen for me, that I had no shot. If I wanted to be a doctor or anything else, I actually went to law school. I'm a teacher, but I'll never leave this work no matter what I do because I raised a young black boy. And he's 18 years old. He graduated from high school last night.
That's right.
And 73 kids in his class graduated, all 73 going to college. 50-something are brown. You can't tell me it's not possible. Okay? And what matters is there's caring adults in that environment, adults who will reach out to teachers. So I went and shook all his teachers' hands last night to say, hey, I know my son has a good father and a good mother, but I appreciate the role that you play every day in his life. Because when he walks in that schoolhouse, you his daddy. Okay? And that's not always the case everywhere. And sometimes you'll walk in a probation office, they don't care about you. You go where she used to work, they don't care about you. You know? So I want people who are committed to making a difference in these professions. And so the role is many, because every day you're dealing with other people's problems. But at the end of the day, it's not for me to judge you. I'm not a judge. My job is to help you. And when you pose a threat to the community and you are no longer receptive to the help that's being offered, it's then my job to go to the judge and say, hey judge, these are all the things we tried, it's in your hands now.
Next.
For the community activists, what's the most challenging thing you deal with in your line of work?
What's the most challenging thing I do? Making people aware, making the walking around people in Connecticut aware of what our prison situation is and how we can do much better than what we're doing. Look, people end up in prison because they do bad things. That doesn't mean they're bad people. You got parents or something in prison, that doesn't mean they're bad people. You know that. But they've done something that got them in there. And so therefore, it's hard to make people understand that. Right now, America incarcerates more people than any other nation has done in the history of the world. Nobody ever done this before. Right now, there are more black people in prison today than were in slavery in 1850. That's wrong. This is wrong. We can do so much better than that. So the thing is that we got to get out of the custody and incarceration business and get into the correction business. And that's going to happen legislatively. And it'll happen legislatively when people walking around people, just regular people, and you too, call up your legislator, call up your state senator, call up anybody in the legislature and say, look, let's stop this. Let's start really correcting people with their problems. Let's start really doing that, helping them out. Because I'll tell you right now, one of the reasons I'm sitting here with you today, I have a sister, I have a wonderful, great sister, a great sister. My sister, at the age of 39, got up and left her 5 kids between the age of 2 and 12 to go drinking with a bum. Because she was a drunk, a bad drunk, and nobody knew it. She was a closet drunk. Her husband knew, he never told nobody. And it didn't make her a bad person. Addiction's a terrible thing. I think some of you might know that. It's a terrible thing. It takes wonderful people and turns them into kind of monsters, certain people. It's very bad. So we got to make people aware that these are good people who've done bad things, and that's a hard thing to do. So thanks for that question.
Another one for the community activists. What's the most rewarding thing about your job?
Meeting wonderful people like you. It's a great thing. I meet so many nice people. I really do. And I see them all the time. And whether they're correction officers, ex-offenders, children of, bail bonds, whatever it may be, I meet so many nice people. And that's why I say there's so many nice people that are working at this, then we're going to get this thing better. We're going to do it. Don't lose hope. Don't give up. Don't think we can't do this. That's what we want.
Correctional officer. Do you get scared of being locked in with people who have committed crimes like murder?
I'm different from the normal correctional individual that works there. I've worked among various people that have committed all sorts of crime. But a murderer, whoever was charged with murder, never feared me. I put no fear in my heart. The individual that put fear in my heart was the one that was honestly on drugs. Okay? So no, I'm a little different. I'm not the norm.
Ex-offender. What did you miss the most while in jail?
My family. Not being there for my family. I cried every night. 20 years, not a night when I laid out, I didn't cry in jail. So if you got somebody that's incarcerated, they tell you they didn't cry. I cried every night. Every night I laid down. Consciously, unconsciously, I cried. Cried myself to sleep.
This question for the bail bondsman, and it's what is the most common bond amount, and what's the most common charge?
The most common bond amount is maybe 10,000. The most common charge is a failure to appear.
My next question is for the ex-offender, and it's what was it like to be in jail, and how did it make you feel?
That was my first time ever in jail. Scared when I first got to prison. I was 19 years old. Very scared. First time in my life that I actually was scared for my life, thinking that somebody might try to stab me, rape me, or anything. In jail, the biggest person has a lot of problem because the little guy, if he figure he got to prove something, that's what he's going to attack. So that's why fear was a very difficult time for me to just, when I was in jail, very hard for me to just prison life. It's not a life for no human being.
And my next question for the probation officer is why do you use incubators and how do you use them?
There are specific times that you would use any kind of restraint, and that would be in an arrest situation. We wouldn't use it for any other purpose, and at that time it's part of the arrest process, and that's to make sure that the person is safe themselves, and also that the people around them are safe, because if you're getting arrested, most of the time you don't want to be arrested. So you might want to take some kind of action that could either cause you harm or someone else. So that's why you're restrained. Other than that, there's no reason for a probation officer to restrain in any kind of physical restraints an individual. There could be a number of different reasons that a person goes on electronic monitoring. They can do it for bail purposes. So say, for instance, the judge orders that they be monitored while they're on bail. That's pre-trial. They could be then, upon conviction and ordered by the judge, to be on electronic monitoring for a number of different reasons. It could be high-risk clients, it could be domestic violence, serious domestic violence. It could be sex offenses. It could be some high-profile case that they want the person to be watched during a specific period of time. And I'm going to ask you, Trevor, because I know you do it much more.
So I'm looking to see if either any of you got a watch on. Nobody? Nobody has watches these days. My generation, we grew up wearing watches. You guys have cell phones. So somebody tell me one. Here's a watch right here, right? So imagine if this watch could not come off. So I put this watch on his hand, and then I have another box that I put in his house that communicates with this watch. And it says, are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Because if you have a curfew, right, it's up to your parent to enforce that curfew. But with technology, they can put something on your ankle that you can't take off. And then they put something on your phone that communicates with this. It's like GPS in your phone. When you make a phone call, there's a signal going up. And it's coming down and going somewhere else. Well, they put this technology on human beings so they can figure out where they are. So if a sex offender is not supposed to go in their playground, they'll put something on them, and then it'll show where he is. If you have a curfew, the judge might say, okay, we're going to put this electronic bracelet on your ankle to see if you made curfew. And if you don't come, if the machine is looking for you because you're supposed to be home at 7 p.m., and it doesn't, and the watch is not in range, then the machine's going to say he's not here. Well, you come home at 8:15, and the machine's going to say he's here now. Well, the next day that probation officer is going to get a report. It's going to say, nope, at 7 o'clock he wasn't there. He arrived at 8:15, and then guess what happened at 9 o'clock? He went back out. So the court will do this to restrict some people. And they do it primarily for people who pose a threat to other people. They do it on young people to keep you home. And sometimes keeping you home is keeping you safe. Because if you're 11 years old, because I was on probation at 11, and I had a curfew. They didn't have electronic bracelets. I'm old. They had my mother. She was the one who enforced the curfew. And they felt like a certain time I needed to be in the house, because there's a certain time of the day where, at 11 years old, if you outside, you can't be up to anything good. If it's 1 in the morning, you're 11 years old and you outside, I'm going to guess that that's not a good situation. So the court will try to help families keep kids in the house. For other people, they try to keep them, restricted to where they live. And they do it a lot in his world, the bail bondsman, because people will run. So when he said failure to appear, that means they were already arrested, they had a court date, and they didn't show up. And now his job is to go look for them because he's on the hook for that 10 grand. If they're on a bracelet, we're going to know right away. We're going to know that, hey, that person left the house and and then we're going to notify, the court's going to be notified, and he's going to be out there looking for them. So electronic monitoring has value, but it doesn't accomplish what you can do yourself, and that's learn to control your own behavior. It's just a machine that they put on to figure out where you were. Or not so much where you were, where you weren't. Go ahead.
What happened when you cut the
It's nice because so what we do is we put sensors in this watch, and it's tight. They're not like his. He can just unhook it, right? No big deal. But they put sensors in there, and when you break the strap, the sensors tell on you. It's like your little brother. You do something wrong, he tell. Okay. When the machine says, it asks two questions: are you there? And are you 100%? I'm here, but I'm broken. Well, if this is broken, what's the possibility about him? He might be gone. He took it off, he broke it off, and he left it there. All we can say is that the watch was there, but because it was tampered with, we don't know that he's attached to it. So the guys, they try to get it off. They put grease on their ankles and slide it and twist it and put it over. They do everything, but if it's put on there right, not too tight to take away the circulation, but if he takes it off, the machine will tell him. The watch is there, but it's broken. And because it's broken, there's no proof that he was there.
So just listen to your mom. You don't have to get
Yeah? Yeah? It's a box that they attach to the telephone line.
Yeah, and it had like yellow blinky.
Yeah.
And some was green and some red. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't know that was for. But now I know.
Well,
They told me,
yeah, so red means what?
you know,
Right. Just like a stoplight, Green is always go, everything's good. Yellow means you're starting to drift out of range. Red means you're out of range. And so the box is telling you. You walk up and the light turns green, you know it's working. You go across the street and your brother say, hey, it's red, you're out of range. You need to move back in range. So yeah, you've seen it, you understand it.
This question goes for community activists. Do you think incarceration work?
I'm sorry.
Incarceration. Do you think incarceration work?
Do you think incarceration works?
Yes and no. I think there are some people who are not well and are not meant or fit to be in society and whatnot, and incarceration is really the only way to do it. I think, let's put it this way. 9 out of 10 people are in prison because they have a mental health problem and or they're addicted to something. Incarceration works if it would help them get through that. But as this handsome young lady will tell you, we don't do much of that drug treatment and the mental health thing. We're not mental health hospitals. We're prisons. We're not mental health hospitals. So therefore, it doesn't work as well as it could work, and that's why my friends and I are trying to help make a change in criminal justice legislation to make it so it can work, because it should work. It should help people. It should correct them. That's the job.
I'm going to add on to that.
Yeah, I can open that question to anyone on the panel.
Okay. Corrections was in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s about rehabilitation. Okay? In I believe it was 1970, 1971, Richard Nixon, our president then, and what is his name? The New York governor at that time, Rockefeller, came up with some of the most harshest drug laws, okay, with the mandatory minimums and the war on drugs, that they refused to rehabilitate. Now they want to incarcerate, okay? So the rehabilitation part of corrections no longer exists, okay? All they're doing is building more prisons, more jails. Some states are even privatizing, okay, where they're no longer controlled by the state. We rent them out to these private companies. It's big business. You can buy market shares on the stock market into these institutions. So no, they no longer, that's not their motto. Their motto is to lock you all up and throw away the key. That's the answer to their quote-unquote problem.
And just to add on to it, especially with the youth component, we talk about the Manson Youth Institute, and those are for the young people up to age 21. And because it's so full, a lot of times young people don't even get into that facility. But even in that facility, if you need to go to school, you are allowed to go to school only if you are behaving a certain way. So it's not that you are going to go to school while you're there. You may not ever get to school if you have a charge that doesn't allow for it, or if your behavior doesn't allow for it. So even there, you're not going to get what you need in order to be successful. Stay away from prison. I can tell you, it is not a place where anybody likes you, anybody cares about you, or anybody's going to do a thing for you. Be here, learn everything you can here. This is where it's happening. Be successful, and when you finish, when you get to where you need to be, you'll be able to be the people sitting at this table telling somebody else, or telling your neighborhood, neighbors, and your friends and family how to be successful.
Can I say something? Are you all from this New Orleans area?
Most of them.
Okay, before you were born, in your mother or your grandmother's time, this Dixwell Avenue stretch here, you had right across the street, right there and right there, you had physicians, doctors. Yes, you had doctors all along, black doctors, minority doctors, all along this strip. This was New Hallville downtown, so to speak. Okay, you had your bank, you had your doctor offices, you had your schools, okay? You had, this is really before your time, the Black Panther Party that had, that ran social organization for children of your age. I used to attend their function. Yale, the university, that big brown building that's stretching from downtown New Haven, that's trying to move over to New Orleans. They had students that were so interested in disadvantaged children that we used to be able to go on the campus and spend all summer there, okay? What I'm trying to get you to realize, you came from a community that was rich in wealth at one time, rich in social, economical skills, okay, rich in education. Do you know how many people came out of Hill House High School that went to Yale, that went to Harvard, that came out of Wilbur Cross, that went to the MBA? Okay, this little area that you have was once a very prominent area for black individuals. But here lately, we're tearing down our own area. I just want to add that piece. That's it.
Thank you.
It's for the probation officer. Have you had to chase a client?
Have I ever did what?
Have to chase a client.
I've never had to chase a client because I never thought that, well, let me take it this way. I believed in developing relationships with people so that I could help them to make changes in their lives. So I live in Bridgeport, and I worked in Bridgeport for my entire career. I'm also an elected official and a community activist, and I go around knocking on people's doors to address issues and help families and individuals with what their needs are. So when I work with someone, I'm working with them and helping them and to understand what they need to do. And it's cooperation. We're working cooperatively. And somebody asked earlier about, you know, were you ever afraid when you were in prison of the people in the prison? The same people coming out of prison with the same kind of charges are the same people that we meet on probation. And I never felt fear from anyone because I didn't mistreat anyone and I wasn't disrespectful to anyone. I was there to do a job, and that was to help whoever the person was make the necessary changes and help them to get where they needed to be. So it was, if we need, if, for instance, I had worked with someone to the point where they weren't able to make that change, and we had to move forward with action that would re-incarcerate that person. At that particular point, they realized what they had done, because we had worked so very hard to change, and I work with a lot of young people, worked so very hard to change what was going on with them and to help them to do something different, that they, when we talked about the next step, which was having to go back to prison, they understood it. It wasn't argumentative. They weren't upset about it. They understood that they didn't do what they needed to do. So this was the outcome, and that's what happens with probation. Probation is the opportunity to do the work, but when the work doesn't happen or you don't accomplish it, then the final action is possibly reincarceration. So I say that to say that no, I've never had to chase anyone down. I've never had to speak harshly to anyone. I've never had to be disrespectful to anyone. And I have a lot of folks that I've worked with over the course of the years that I work with now. They're out, they're ex-offenders, and I participate in a lot of programming with them and activities with them. So we're all about the community. We're trying to make a change in our community to make something different happen for our children. You are our children. We want something different for you. So no, never had that problem.
Go ahead, Donna.
In my line of work, and as she said, sometimes she has to send a violation out where we're going back to jail, and then I also have to go get them. And I'm gonna say this: most of the time, they go back in without a hitch. A lot of them want to get their family together. They basically want to spend that time with their family and have someone that actually ask for extra time so they could just be there for their family, for their child to be born and everything like that. And they're more emotional because they're leaving the family than they are running from the problem they did. And like she said, a lot of them do understand that they committed a crime and they have to do the time. So, and it's a respect value. Like she also respect back up that when you go get them, if you give them the respect of not being the mean guy like you see on TV, and just showing them the respect, they'll give it back to you. So most people they're not, an incarcerated person is not a bad person, and if we all show them the respect, I think we would have a better system. I think we can agree with that. That's why the panel you see, we showed them the respect. That's why we probably didn't have the problems that another probation officer or correction officer would have.
Ex-offender, are there bars of doors? What does it look like?
Average cell probably is the size of, I want to say, well, how can I picture
A
it?
bathroom?
How about the same?
Bathroom.
I was going to say the bathroom here, but that's too big. I'll say half of ebony office, right down the middle, half. That's the size of the cell.
And you share that, Mr. Outlaw?
Yeah, you share that with another person. 2 people to a cell. 2 people living in a cell like that, 2 bunks, one on top of each other. So when he used the bathroom, you can't even get down. Mm-hmm. So he's on the toilet, you gotta stay on your bed, hold your nose, you know, cause you gotta smell him, and values the same way. Very tight quarters. Very bad.
Community activist, what is the sentencing commission of the state of Connecticut?
It's a very good question. I'm on the sentencing commission. It's around 35 people that we get together and we talk about sentencing policy and how we can make it more effective and better. On that commission are people from the Department of Children and Families, people from judges and lawyers, chief state prosecutor, chief state public defender, victim advocates, and like people like me, you know, just a community activist or a business person. Then we consider things. The thing we worked on very, very hard last year and this year was a bill as you may or may not know, juveniles can be sentenced to up to life without parole. As a juvenile, you can be sentenced to that. And our proposal was that if a juvenile did something like that, their brains weren't fully formed yet, it ought to be looked at after they've been in for 15 or 20 years to see if they've learned something and reconsider their sentence. Twice, this year and last year, that bill was defeated. With a lot of support, just a couple guys in the legislature killed that bill. That's why we need you to speak up, because that can't happen anymore. That bill should have gone through. It was a good bill. The U.S. Supreme Court has already approved it. They should have voted for it.
I just want to add something to that. There's a Supreme Court case, Alabama versus Miller. So your mind is not fully developed until you're in your early 20s. So if you did something at 15, we should not think that we should lock you away until you die. Your mind is not fully developed. The Supreme Court acknowledges that. And the challenge was for Connecticut to make a decision that we will not sentence young people, juveniles, who are being tried as adults, to the rest of their lives behind bars. Because we understand young people do things. You know, I raised 2 kids, and sometimes they do things that I don't understand. And when I used to go ask my mother about it, she said, yeah, you did it too. Okay? So the idea here is the Sentencing Commission tries to change, but our legislature wouldn't approve that change. And so you should, if you live in a community, you should know who your legislator is. Who's the mayor of New Haven? Y'all know that, right? Okay. Who was the mayor before her?
John.
You know that. Who was the mayor before him? Who's your state rep in the district you live in?
Who?
That's who you would call, because that's who has a vote when it comes to legislation in Connecticut.
Thank you.
This is for the correctional officer. What is the most challenging thing you deal with in your life, in your line of work?
What was the most challenging in my work when I went to work at Niantic, working with women? That challenged me the most. Women, we as women, we have certain issues and that we have to deal with. We're emotional beings. Everything we do is tied into our emotion, okay? And so to break the walls and dealing with another female, that was very challenging. To build the trust with them, because they have been abused so much and used and mishandled. That was very challenging. And I came from a male prison, and I preferably prefer to work with males. So Niantic, working in York Correctional Facility was the most challenging. They have so many issues, and people just don't listen. People just do not listen to the female offenders. Most rewarding, I was able to listen to people, actively listen. I was able to assist where I needed to be, where the need was. Today when I walk down the street or when I'm at the colleges, I see so many guys that say, Ms. Santos, Lieutenant Santos, Officer Santos, you're the reason why I'm over here at Gateway Community College. Thank you. The letter that you've written for me, that helped me. The time that you took out, you didn't treat me like the others treat me. I have even heard someone say she protected me against my peers, against her peers. So to help someone, to assist, that was the most rewarding.
Ex-offender. What advice would you give to people?
2 advice. Being young, I'll tell you, like I said before, it's very important that you listen to whoever run your household, your mother, your grandmother, whoever raised you. The next advice I would give to you is education. Education. You got to go to school. You got to do right in school. You got to do anything to learn. You know what I'm saying? You got to do that. You got to get that education. And that's something nobody can take from you. gotta get that education. Education will open so many doors for you. So many doors. So many doors. You know, I'm back in school now for education. You're young, get it. Get that education now. Go hard in school. You know what I'm saying? Get in your lane in school. What you like doing, you having trouble with, you ain't strong in math, tell the teacher. You ain't strong in science, tell the teacher. That's why I made a mistake and I wouldn't tell nobody. Speak up. That's hard for me. I need you to help me. I need for you to explain it more. Education. The education. That's what we're losing at. So that'll be my advice, education.
Thank you. Next.
I think back up to education. There's people that are my age that right now try to go through life where they have to have people fill out an application for them because they don't know how to read the application. There's people that can't add up their own money, they're giving too much money back because they don't know how to add or subtract. Education, as you just said, is so important. And if you need help, get the help. You're never too cool to ask for help. They say a poor man is the one that don't ask for help. A rich man is that got help from everybody. You could learn something from anybody in the world. So always know that you can learn from anybody in the world. You can learn from each other. You might know something that he don't know, and vice versa. So education is not just books, but it's also listening to your peers and listening to people that want to help you do better. So that is very important.
Correctional officer, what kind of education training did you complete?
What kind of education and training did you have to complete to become a correctional officer?
Back when I was doing it, all you needed was a high school diploma. And you just need to be 18. I'm still 18. Okay. And so at that time, you didn't need anything. But I'm hearing now they want you to have at least an associate's degree. And then you go through an academy for 6 to 9 months of training.
Thank you.
This is for the probation officer. In your experience, how has jail affected people and their families?
Jail is no place for, as Mr. Outlaw said, for any human being. It is a horrible place. I had to go there to meet with clients for a variety of different reasons, and every time I went there, I hated it. I hated having to go through the detectors. I hated having to take off some clothing that they felt that I shouldn't take into the facility. I hated getting the door slammed behind me. It clanks. It's like it's a big metal door. When they shut it, it makes this huge echoing sound. It clanks shut. And I know that I can't get out. If I wanted to open that door and go out, I can't get out. I'm in there. Going in, it's cold. Everything is metal, at least the facilities that I would go into. Even in the open areas, there's nothing warm. It's not like your home where everything is warm and comfortable. Everything is uncomfortable and everything is it's hard. I don't think now, as Ms. Santos has said earlier, there was a time when correctional facilities were actually about rehabilitation. They are not about rehabilitation now. They are about incarceration and incapacitating you. You go there and there are some things you might be able to do, but by and large, you are just in jail. And nobody really has any care for your welfare or concern unless you have some officers who are there and who do care about you and will try to as much as they can to help. But a lot of the times, in talking to a lot of clients, it is not a nice place to be. The food is disgusting. I had one young man come and tell me that he didn't eat anything except the fresh fruits and vegetables that came. He said he refused to eat the meat because he worked in the kitchen. He saw what came out of it was gray when they took it out of the packaging. He said it looked horrible. He said unless it was in a can or it was fresh, he wasn't touching it. So you have those issues. The conditions, being in a small locked up small area with another person who may have mental health issues or may be detoxing from a substance, which means that their body is going to go through a number of different changes, and they're going to go emotionally through a lot of changes, and you have to be in close confines with that person going through those changes. Or if they have a mental health problem, you have to be there dealing with whatever. They might be hearing voices, they could have all kinds of issues. So I don't think a prison is a place for anyone. It's not a place for human beings. It certainly isn't a place for children. There are people, again, that need to be incarcerated, but that's like 3% or 5% of the population, of the entire population. And they are people who are just psychopaths or sociopaths, people who cannot do differently. And you usually know about them very early on when they're very young, because they display certain kinds of behaviors. But the greater majority of our folk who are in prison is environmental. It's things that are happening in community. It's the lack of jobs, so people have to find another way to get money to feed their families and support. Or people feel that they aren't, they have no self-esteem, so they might get involved in using drugs. And because drugs are illegal, then they get arrested for that. There's a Facebook statement going around now that says, in Colorado, marijuana is now legal. So where a lot of our people were incarcerated, and with those draconian laws where they had mandatory minimum sentences for selling marijuana, and they're incarcerated even today on federal charges and maybe even state charges. Now you have a group of people who are non-minority who are going to be making millions off of selling marijuana. So these are all the issues out there, and but back to your point, no, I don't think it's not a place for anybody unless you have one of those issues that you don't need to be in society.
Yeah, I mean, jail's an awful place. I mean, you guys hear about it, read about it. Sometimes you might actually go. I visited my father many times in prison. The worst situations were when he was actually in a jail as opposed to a prison, because in a jail I couldn't touch him. In Connecticut, when you're in jail, you only communicate with people through glass. You don't get to put your hands on them. And touching is a part of being connected to somebody. So I would visit my father and I couldn't hug him. So when he got transferred to other facilities, I appreciated that. But then I also knew that he was a proud man, and this was a hard place for him to be. They stink, okay? Mm-hmm. You take 300-400 men, they might take one shower a week. They got the same raggedy clothes. They ain't got no dates. I got up, take a shower, put on some cologne, deodorant, because, I want to present myself to the world. Well, if I'm in jail around a bunch of other stinking dudes, what am I going to do? Do I care that my feet stink? Probably not. That's what used to hit me the most. I've been in jails in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Connecticut. I've been in prisons in Russia. They're all the same. They stink. They're full of stinking people. Didn't like being there. Didn't like how the staff treated people. And I know the people didn't deserve to be in those conditions. Being separated from your family is enough. Being separated from the community is enough. Being treated like an animal is just cruel. Okay? And we have a history of being treated like animals as brown people in this country. We have a history of that. And it continues. And so, no, I'll never be a fan of that approach. There are some people, as she said, who need to be incapacitated. And that simply means they need to be separated from society. Because they're some dangerous fools. We need to separate them. But that's not the majority of people who are behind bars. Majority of people who are behind bars are poor people who had drug problems and mental health issues that weren't treated.
We'd like to thank all of our panelists for participating. Give them a round of applause. I'd also like to give an opportunity for all of our panelists to receive a certificate of appreciation. We thank you very much for being here and shedding some light on the situation. I'd also like to pay notice to the artwork that is on both of our boards. Our children have been working with different mentors throughout the school year to create some beautiful art, and we put them up for display. This is Miss Leah Haught. She works with our students. We also have another one of our mentors, Mr. Pat Lador here. He's been working with our children on the 6 foundations of abundant living.
I just want to ask one question. I'm sorry I know you're trying to wind up, but I think it's a twofold question. I think it's an important question for the kids. Number one, I wanted to ask, life is very, very tough, and maybe especially tough for children that come from a community where there aren't a lot of the advantages that other communities have. As we've described, it used to be a different kind of community. So the first part I wanted to ask is if people could just say, what they could offer to the kids when they go through tough times. What's your best advice for them to keep themselves strong, to keep themselves hopeful, to keep themselves looking in a positive way at their life and their opportunities? And the second one is, if they have to interface with police or, people who are enforcing the law, and maybe they're not up to anything negative at all, what's the best way to sort of handle the situation and get through it smoothly without having to be, incriminated or, accused of something that they're not involved with or not responsible for? How can they comport themselves in the best way?
The first thing is, whatever you're going through, you're not alone. Someone's been through it, someone's going through it, someone's had it worse than you. And you have to find an outlet. You have to find someone to process it with, talk to, whether it's a teacher, a minister, a friend, a community person, someone who's gone through it. You can't internalize and keep it inside. I used to do that, and that's not helpful. And then I looked around and realized there were a whole lot of kids going through the same thing I was going through. They had some of the same feelings. So when you learn to talk to people, you find that outlet. If you like to write your feelings down. If you like to read, go read something. Find a way to positively address what's going on with you and learn to trust other people. But the person who's going to love you most is you. And that's critical. There are outlets, and you don't have to have a lot of money. The library is one of the greatest outlets we ever have. They're free and open to the public. It may not be cool to go there to some people, but there's a whole lot of good stuff in there. Got them little phones, you got that stuff on it, you hit Google, it gives you all the information you want. I'm amazed when I ask somebody something and they go to their phone and get the answer. If you walking around with an encyclopedia in your pocket, use it. There's a lot of information in there. But if you're dealing with something, just know you're not alone. Know that there's a caring individual out there, a friend, a teacher, somebody in your community, a church member, that you can talk to. And they're not going to judge you. They're going to try to help you.
I say surround yourself with positive people at all times, friends, especially your friends. If your friend really your friend, he'll never tell you to do nothing wrong. He'll never tell you to indulge in nothing negative. A friend would never tell you to smoke a joint. A friend would never tell you to steal. A friend would never tell you to not break the rules in your household. A real friend would never, remember that, a real friend would never tell you to do nothing wrong. A real friend would never tell you to do nothing wrong. A real friend.
And then the other thing is our program, your Believe in Me Empowerment and the CIP program. The fact that you guys come all the time and you're willing to learn, and you learn from each other, and you learn from these kind of group settings, and you learn from the case managers, and you learn from Mr. Walker. This is where it's at. This is what's going to give you what you need. If you need support, you're having problems and issues, that's what we're here to do, is to help you guys through it. We're here for you, no other reason.
I have another ex-offender in the building, Mr. Whitehead, and he want to speak for like less than 5 minutes. Go ahead.
How y'all doing? My name is Ernest, and I also was incarcerated because I didn't listen. And when you don't listen, that's where you go. You go to jail, or it can be worse. It could be death. But we all have to die, but you don't want to die the wrong way. You don't want to die not listening. I grew up. My mother died when I was 10. My father wasn't around, so I was searching for something. Before she died, she left me with a feeling. She was around. She cared for me, and then she just died. So I was still searching for that feeling, but I was searching for it the wrong way. You know, I moved in with my grandmother. She lived in a neighborhood where it was a lot of boys that I could relate to. They went through the same situation I went through. Their mothers died, their father wasn't around, so I could relate to them. But as I related to them, they were already on the streets doing the wrong thing. And I came accustomed to that life. I liked that life. As I grew up, it was hard to stray from that life. It became a part of me, a part of who I am. So it was hard to break from that life. One thing that broke me, well, the only thing that really, really broke me was God. Because I was too hard. I wouldn't listen to nothing. I thought my way was the best way. But when I went to jail, I was hurt, I was angry. But I realized I got saved, so going back with that, I wouldn't say jail was a bad thing. You know? Jail's for criminals. So it's not a bad thing. But at the end of the day, just gotta do the right thing, and that's all.
And he also created a nice video for Mother's Day, and it's out there now, and I guess he'll show it to y'all one day. It's a very nice video. You also an artist?
Yeah, I'm a gospel rapper.
Yeah.
I'm a gospel rapper, and I rap about things I've been through, testimonial things, you know, things that people could relate to.
There are 3 things you get for nothing that is very valuable. 3 things for nothing. Just being Americans, for nothing. Number 1, a high school education. You get that for nothing. Number 2, if you decide not to have kids till you get married, you're going to do yourself a big favor. Number 3, if you decide not to get married till you're 21 years old and mature, you're going to do everybody a favor. And it's all for you. It's all free for nothing. And with conducting your lives like that, you're going to bring a lot of order. The officer just talked about how beautiful it was here on the street back in the day. It can be that way again. You can make it that way. And it's for free. It doesn't cost you a thing. I know we haven't all got a lot of money. We don't need money for this. Think about that. Think about that, and your lives could be very, very good for you. Because you're obviously nice young people. You're here. You've listened very patiently. You've been very, very good, I must say. I don't think I could sit there and be as patient as you've been.
That's right.
You've been very, very good. You'd be commended. Thank you. You're very good.